We are absolutely swimming in marketing from the giants, right? You see the flashy celebrity ads, the huge Super Bowl commercials, it's everywhere. But what happens when you don't have a multi-million-dollar budget? What's the playbook when you're the little guy? So that's the big question we're tackling. How can a small brand, a local company, or even a nonprofit possibly stand out when they're up against these industry Goliaths? It's that classic David versus Goliath story, just, for the modern market.
And the answer really is right here. When you can't afford the big, flashy, sexy campaign, that's when your strategy has to be absolutely razor sharp. This isn't about outspending them, it's about outthinking them. Okay, so first up in our Underdogs playbook, it's all about finding your small-scale insight. See, the biggest, most powerful ideas, they don't always come from shouting the loudest. They come from listening the closest.
So what is a small-scale insight? Well, think of it as a niche truth that has this secret universal power. It's what you discover when you really, truly listen to, say, 10 people, instead of just sending a survey to 10,000. It's funny, because what feels super specific to a small group is often what rings the most true for everybody. And that's the kind of truth that scales.
Let me show you a brilliant example of this in action. It comes from Bank Al Etihad, which is a local bank over in Jordan. Now, they didn't have some massive global budget, but what they did have was a beautiful, overlooked insight that was right there in their own community.
So the bank realized that visually impaired citizens were kind of being left out of the Ramadan experience, which, as you know, relies heavily on seeing the phases of the moon. So what they do? They created something called blind faith. These amazing tactile bracelets with the moon phases embossed on them so people could follow along independently. This tiny local idea completely sparked a national movement. It just goes to show you that an insight focused on a small group can have a massive, massive impact.
That idea was all about creating something deeply meaningful. But building on that, our second pillar is about placement. For a challenger brand, where you show up can actually be just as powerful as what you show. The placement itself, that becomes the creative idea.
And I really want you to let this sink in. Placement is creative. For way too long, media and creative have been treated like two separate things. But for an underdog, they have to be the exact same thing. When they work together, wow, the ideas get sharper and the impact just skyrockets.
And this slide just lays it out perfectly. You've got the big brand playbook, right? It's predictable. Super Bowl ads, big celebrity cameos, you know the drill. But the challenger playbook, that's about hijacking unexpected moments, starting real organic conversations, and inserting your brand into cultural movements where your audience is already hanging out. Oh, and I've got the perfect story for this one. Let's talk about Mojo Supermarket versus a now very famous couch. I'm sure you remember when that Calvin Klein ad with Jeremy Allen White just about broke the internet. Well, Mojo saw a golden opportunity. So instead of even trying to compete with Calvin Klein's ad spend, Mojo did something completely ingenious. They managed to get their hands on the actual red couch from the photo shoot. And for the placement, they listed it for free on Facebook Marketplace. I mean, think about that. They turned a platform for selling old furniture into the stage for a viral brand moment. It was an unmissable piece of culture for their exact audience. Now that is placement as creative. You know, that couch idea wasn't just clever, it was also incredibly gutsy. And that leads us straight to our third pillar, which is really more of a mindset shift. Your budget should never, ever dictate how courageous you can be. In fact, sometimes being smaller actually gives you more freedom to be brave. Think about it, right? When you have fewer layers of corporate approval, less red tape, you just have more permission to take risks. When you can't hide behind a super glossy, high-production ad, you're forced to lead with a truly stellar idea. And honestly, those are the ideas that people actually remember anyway. And there is no better example of this principle than the original disruptor brand, Dollar Shave Club. I mean, their launch is legendary for a very, very good reason. Take a look at this number. Their famous launch video, the one that felt totally homemade and hilariously authentic, it was shot for just $4,500. That's it. And now look at this number. The company was eventually bought for over $1 billion. The contrast between that tiny initial investment and that massive outcome is just staggering. And it was all built on the back of one ridiculously courageous idea. This was the line from the founder himself. In that video, that just cut through all the noise. It was gutsy, it was real, and it perfectly captured the no BS spirit of the brand. It wasn't glossy, but man, was it effective. It was pure courage. So, as we start to bring this all together, the lesson becomes crystal clear, doesn't it? The real magic in marketing happens when you're forced to outthink your competition, not just outspend them. Your greatest asset isn't your wallet. So here it is, the playbook, all summed up. First, you start by listening for those small-scale insights. Second, you make your placement a core part of the creative idea itself. And third, you lead with courage, not with cash. It's all about pairing those gutsy ideas with the ingenuity to actually get them seen. And that brings us to the final and most important point of this whole thing. It's not about the size of your brand or how deep your pockets are. Your biggest asset, your true competitive advantage, it isn't your budget, it's your imagination. So I'm going to leave you with a question to chew on. Whether you're working on a huge global campaign or just a small local project, what's an overlooked community, an unspoken frustration, or just a simple niche truth out there that you could turn into your next big idea?